Ruin My Childhood.
You're listening to Ruin My Childhood, the podcast where we decide if some things are better left in the past. I'm Kat.
I'm Mike.
And today we're talking about The Rescuers.
Indeed.
The original Rescuers.
The original Rescuers.
Not The Rescuers Down Under.
Yeah, I was confused because I definitely had seen the one we're talking about, but for some reason I thought I owned The Rescuers Down Under and thought I was super attached to that one, but it turns out it was this one after I saw some screenshots while doing some promo stuff for this one. Yeah, I definitely saw this one, not The Rescuers Down Under.
I have mixed feelings about The Rescuers Down Under.
I don't remember it.
I think the animation was different.
So part of what we're doing for social media now is Trivia Tuesdays, and one of the things is this movie was the first Disney animated feature to get a sequel, but it was 23 years later. So this one came out in like 77, and Rescuers Down Under was like 90.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so that would make sense that the animation style is a little bit different.
It's a lot of time in between. What do you remember about this one?
Honestly, I was trying to like rack my brain and try to figure out what I remember from the plot. The only thing I really remember definitively is they ride a seagull as like an airplane. And
he's an albatross.
Is it an albatross?
It's an albatross.
I thought albatrosses had
Albatross Air.
I thought they had longer necks. Because there's the whole old poem, like the albatross.
Orville says Albatross Air.
Oh, is that the name of the bird?
That's the name of the airline.
Oh, okay. But I was trying to really like rack my brain and figure out the plot of the movie. And I came up with this like plot that there's an orphan, or you think she's an orphan, but really her dad's still alive and they're going to go find the dad. But then I realized that's the plot to the Tom and Jerry movie from the 90s.
I don't think I ever saw that one.
I definitely loved that movie as a kid, but I honestly cannot remember the plot of this movie. I just remember the albatross.
I think I remember the entirety of this movie because this was one of my favorites when I was little. It was like a situation where every time I got to pick the movie, it was usually this one, and my sisters would both whine about it because I would always pick this one.
I mean, it's Disney. It's gonna be good, I'm sure. But I honestly don't remember anything about this movie.
The animation style, I mean, you can definitely tell it's older. The animation style is a lot more like 101 Dalmatians. That sort. It's a lot more like that than it is like The Little Mermaid.
Right. So it's my understanding, same thing, doing a little bit of research for the Trivia Tuesdays, was this was kind of like a merger between the new animation and like the old animation. So there was like a group called the Old Nine Men or something like that was like the ones who worked with Walt Disney. Mm-hmm. And apparently Walt Disney did not want to make this movie because of some political tones. Now, I don't know what that means because I don't remember the movie. So he scrapped the movie and they did something else. They did some other movie. So they gave this to like young animators to give them something to work on. And then I guess Disney passed and people were like, oh, this seems actually pretty good. And then they took it away from the young animators and then brought the old nine back to finish it.
That's pretty cold. I remember the whole film, and I'm not really sure what political overtones there could be in this.
I don't know. Well, I mean, I'm sure I'll figure that out maybe once we watch it.
Probably. Honestly, if I were to rehash everything I remember about this film, I would just be giving you a rundown of the whole film.
So what's your favorite part of the film then?
My favorite, and so much of what I love about it is somewhat intangible. It's not necessarily one scene. It's like the quality of the animation, it's kind of scruffy and rough, and the quality of the sound is different, and the voices of the characters are so distinct and rich. And a lot of the voice actors in this, you hear them all over the place in old animation. A lot of the same people pop up over and over again. Well, and I think that's what's so comforting about it.
So I don't know any of the characters' names, but Ava Gabor is the female lead, the female mouse. Mm-hmm. She was in Aristocats. She played Duchess.
Yep.
That's all I know. I've given you everything I know about this movie.
There's just something so delicious about it. Even the villain in this movie is just... she's so textured, and I think it's really fun.
This is obviously not a visual medium, but I was just like waving my hands and like doing a weird face because I honestly have no idea what you're talking about because I can't even picture the villain.
I think we just need to watch the movie.
Are we gonna check in on our fans and see what they had to say about it first?
Sure. Alexia Danielle Malloy says, I always remember the super abusive kidnapper lady and her eyelashes. Specifically her sneer and the way she'd flounce about. So there's this one scene where she's at her vanity and she's taking off her fake eyelashes, and the way she peels them off, like her eyelid goes with it. And to this day, every time I take off false eyelashes, when some heinous makeup artist puts them on me on set, I think of her. And I just have her voice in my head saying, the devil's eye.
I don't know what any of that means. I'm going to look forward to those scenes.
Caroline Suzanne Ward said, the depressing opening. Is the opening depressing?
I don't know. I'll let you know when I watch it.
The opening's pretty.
I'll let you know when I watch it. Okay. I've got one from Julie 1019. She says, "Yay, excited you're doing this movie. I'm glad you're excited that we're doing this movie, but we asked you to tell us what you remember about the film, and you didn't tell us anything."
That's cold. She was participating.
Are you ready to go watch it?
Yep.
Meet Orville the Albatross, Bernard and Bianca, the secret agents, Penny the desperate, Evinrude the outboard dragonfly, Nero and Brutus, and the outrageous Madame Medusa.
I've got to have the devil's eye.
Holy mackerel, that's it.
Walt Disney Productions' super animated fantasy,
Mayday!
The Rescuers, this summer in theaters everywhere.
All right, we are back after watching that fine feature.
I actually found a lot of things interesting in this that I wanted to look up. So at the beginning of the movie, I think it was Caroline Ward said that it was depressing. I can get why she says it's depressing. Like, there's a ship and there's a message in a bottle, and the message in the bottle gets lost all over the place. That could be kind of depressing. But the thing I found really interesting about that was I thought it was weird that the opening credits told a story.
Yeah.
And I hadn't seen that in a Disney movie, or didn't recall seeing that in any other Disney movies.
I feel like the films around that era kind of did that.
So I actually looked it up. A lot of movies did, but this was actually the first animated film by Disney to have any kind of story elements in the opening credits. So in the prologue, every other one just had, for example, we covered Robin Hood on this, and it was just dancing animals with whistling sounds. It didn't add any. Yeah, exactly. So this actually added to the story. So that was something that I found really interesting. And these old movies, you have to watch the credits, but it gave us something to do.
Robin Hood.
We could watch that again.
Yeah, and it's interesting how I completely forgot that this part of the film existed, that they did this, and yet watching it, it's so comforting too. And I like that the music that they did, it wasn't necessarily anything to do with the setting or the time that it was set in. It was just purely music that was popular at the time.
Yeah.
Soft, melodious 70s music.
And this had a lot of music in it.
Was it 70s?
This is 77.
Got it.
And so there's only one song in this, I think, or maybe two, that they sing. This isn't a musical cartoon.
No.
So they had the Rescue Foundation, or whatever it's called. They had a song.
Rescue Aid Society.
Rescue Aid Society. They had a song, and then there was a song that the little girl sang with her cat at some point, and that was it. As far as I recall, there was only 2 songs, which I thought was pretty interesting. I would have thought there would have been a lot more.
It definitely played a lot less like an animated feature and more like a regular feature in terms of how the story was put together and the beats.
Right. Should I just do the summary real quick before we get too far ahead of ourselves? So, it's a kid's movie. Pretty simple plot. There's a girl named Penny. She gets abducted by a woman whose name I can't remember. Medusa. Her name's Medusa. Because this woman, Medusa, knows of some treasure that's in this small little cave off the bayou in the swamp.
Devil's Bayou.
The Devil's Bayou. And so she needs a small person to go into this cave to find this diamond. So she abducts a child to get a diamond. She puts a message in a bottle, and the Rescue Aid Foundation.
Rescue Aid Society.
Rescue Aid Society.
RESCUE, Rescue Aid Society. Jeez, Michael.
The Rescue Aid Society sends Bianca.
Yes.
Bianca, and she elects to take Bernard, who's the janitor, for this thing, on a mission to go save the little girl, and that's what it is. It's a pretty simple movie. They do it. Good for them. Good job.
Is that the summary?
Yeah.
I like how they kind of just jump into the story. They open up in an airport.
Yep.
And you see all these people, obviously traveling internationally. There's some random woman in a ball gown.
Well, it shows them going into the UN is where it starts.
I thought they were coming from an airport.
No, they all come into the UN with their suitcases.
That's bizarre.
Yeah, and then all the mice come out.
Yeah, so all these people, these dignitaries, are traveling around with copious amounts of vermin. It's very unnerving.
I wonder how the Rescue Aid Society had to adapt. I wonder how the Rescue Aid Society had to adapt post 9/11. They can't be hiding out in these suitcases anymore. They'd show up on the body scanners.
They're
on the
philanthropic. They were long gone by then.
Oh.
Yeah, that was kind of odd. But I do like the way older movies would illustrate that something was international. Because they just have people dressed very, very well.
Right.
In the highest of high society clothing from different countries.
Right.
Like, this person is very distinctly from
Africa. Yeah.
This guy's wearing a turban,
Right.
the random woman in a gown. It was just odd, but it was pretty funny.
One of the things I really liked in terms of like world building, and it's kind of interesting because, and you see this in a lot of movies with animals or like tiny people like the Borrowers, where they'll use things that
Tiny people?
like the Borrowers, like that movie The Borrowers.
Oh, got it.
Or like Thumbelina or stuff like that, like small sentient creatures. They'll use some of our stuff. So when we first see them in the Rescue Aid Society, the main dude has like a
Bernard.
No, not Bernard. Like the main guy for the Rescue Aid Society, like the guy running the meetings. He is using as like a podium, like a thread spool. Kind of thing, right? And they have matchboxes as like their little compartment / desk that they're sitting in.
Bernard has a comb as a ladder.
Which I thought I really liked him. I want to get back to him in a second. But the thing that I found really weird about this is they use a lot of stuff that we use, for other purposes, like
Human
I mentioned.
Stuff.
Like they use the comb as a ladder and they have broken pencils as like a staircase. But then they also have tiny functioning flashlights. They have tiny functioning headlamps. They had let's see, what else they had tiny little fishing hooks when they got to the bayou, like little tiny fishing rods that were meant for their size.
Here's the thing,
little rolling pins.
What have engineers done throughout society? They have solved problems.
Right.
If you have a human item that already solves the problem, you don't need to engineer something for that. But
you
if
just
you're
need
like,
to miniaturize it.
Yo, we need those flashlights, then you're gonna engineer that.
Right, but what I'm saying is they're
funny,
able
though.
to engineer teeny tiny little flashlights that fit in a little mouse hand. Like, it's just kind of, I found it really fascinating that they have a mix of just human garbage that they're using.
It's so cute.
And then, like, they have fully functional devices.
One thing that does bother me about that, though, so we meet Bernard in this first scene at the Rescue Aid Society. And he is basically the custodian.
Right.
And he's obviously familiar with all these people because he's greeting them all by name as they're walking in. And they pull up this bottle, which we see in the very beginning of the film that
Right.
Penny put her note in. And it's been floating around the ocean. How come they already know that it's a signal for help if they haven't opened the bottle yet?
No, you can see it several times where the thing that's rolled up, it had help written on the outside of the scroll. So you can see the word help.
So how come these mice
Can read English?
Well, I mean, how come they can read English? But if they can organize all of this, why don't they just take that bottle and, like, leave it out front of a police station?
Because they're narcissists and they want to solve the problem.
They're narcissists. Anyway, so we meet Bernard in this scene, and we know right away that he is extremely superstitious.
And neurotic.
He's completely neurotic. And he grabs his little comb ladder, and he's going to climb up into the bottle to get the note. And he's counting the steps.
Right.
Because he has an issue with it. And it's like, you'd think that he would have built his whole life around making sure that these aren't things that pop up.
Well, the number 13 pops up a bunch in this movie,
It
which I
does.
found pretty interesting. Even before that, like, so one of the things that I kind of liked in details is when Bianca, right?
Mm-hmm.
She shows up late. Like, the meeting is already started. And she shows up, and all the men are hot and bothered by her walking in. Like, everybody's like, damn, Mouse, I want to tap that. And she shows up, and everyone gets out of the way so she can get into her thing. What I thought was really interesting is, so she's voiced by Ava Gabor, who's Hungarian, and she sat at the Hungarian desk.
Cute.
So that's, I thought that was pretty good little detail.
I was pleasantly surprised at this one moment when they're discussing what to do about this issue. This little girl needs help.
Right.
And Bianca volunteers to head up this mission.
Mm-hmm.
And initially they're like, oh, well, I guess things aren't like they were in the old days where men did everything and a woman has never done this before, but I guess we have to start somewhere.
Right.
So it's like this little flicker of feminism.
Right.
But then it's like, it's pretty quickly like extinguished by
Bernard.
By polite condescension.
Like Bernard goes, no, I object, and he's once again
It's just concern. Something could happen to you, but it's like it was kind of nice that was as far as they took it. That the
well, no, I went a little
counter
beyond
to
that.
the feminism was really just them wanting to look out for her and protect her. It wasn't like, I don't know if a woman can do that.
No,
it was
wasn't
mainly
that.
just like, I think you should have someone go with you.
Right.
But I did like that they actually put that beat in there. Like,
Yeah,
oh, well,
absolutely.
it shouldn't be a man's world anymore. Why not? Let's
Right.
do it.
I mean, it is the UN.
It was cute.
It's very progressive and liberal.
Well, I thought it was a little bit ahead of its time. Maybe
No, I
that's
agree.
the problem that Disney had with it.
Oh, maybe. Oh, possibly. And maybe just the fact that it's the UN.
Maybe. Yikes. We're not even going to delve into
Because wasn't Disney an anti-Semite?
Yeah, that's the rumor.
Yep. And his head's frozen somewhere.
I mean, well, shut up. That's not the thing.
And he probably did stuff to young Kurt Russell.
How did he get by in Hollywood if he was an anti-Semite?
Because he owned one of the biggest studios?
No, I just mean, like, it can't have been comfortable.
Maybe we found this out after he died, like his journals, and he's just like, hey.
Oh, Lord, do not say anything else.
I was just going to say, hey, I'm an anti-Semite.
You do not need to be putting any quotes on recording right now as Walt Disney. I do like the theory that they created the film Frozen just to
so when you Google Disney
flood
Frozen
over basically overpower what happens when you Google Disney Frozen. and then they took it a step further. Disney Frozen on Ice. They just take it to a whole other level.
Yeah, that's pretty funny.
I wondered why they pushed that film so hard and had that god awful song.
Yeah, they pushed that
playing
real hard.
nonstop.
Katrina, you really need to let it go, okay?
No. God. It took me about 5 years to even get around to watching that film because I hated that song so much, and I still don't think Idina Menzel was a good match for that character.
So
not vocally, not personality-wise, it was just wrong.
So apparently the internet is starting to go against Frozen, say, you know what, it's not as good as Tangled, which I haven't seen.
We tried watching Tangled.
Well, but that was why you had your tumor and you were in the hospital.
It was after my tumor.
In the hospital.
It was in the hospital recovering from the tumor, and we tried to watch it.
And we could only be there for 20 minutes at a time, though, your dad and I. So we were never, ever going to be able to watch the whole thing.
It was obnoxious. Anyway, we need to get back to this. We got derailed.
We did.
I appreciated the feminism.
So what I liked about this is they really did kind of act like detectives as well. So they go to the this is another thing I thought was funny. So they go to the orphanage to kind of like investigate the last time that Penny was seen.
Mm-hmm.
They had a map that was obviously to scale. Did they have a teeny tiny little printer? Or is it hand drawn?
It was hand drafted, I am certain.
But they find this, like, old cat, and the cat's like, hey, you guys need to get out of here, because I'm a cat, and if they find out that I can't get rid of mice, they're gonna get rid of me, and I'm too old to chase you guys. And they're like, we'll go, if you just give us information. And, you know, there's a sweet little scene where he talks about how Penny's kind of depressed because she's never been adopted, and she's like, yeah, these people came to see me, but then they left with this little redheaded girl who's way prettier than me. And they find out that this woman has been trying to abduct her several times, which is scary as hell.
It is scary.
Oh, man. I didn't think that that's what this movie was about.
It's pretty dark.
Yeah.
It's like there's kidnapping, there's child endangerment, child abuse,
child slave labor.
Yeah, it's really twisted.
This diamond is definitely not cruelty free.
Plus, she like sends Penny out to the bayou with some random dude.
Yeah,
It's not okay.
No, it's not okay at all. You know who Medusa kind of reminded me of? The mom from Home Alone.
It's totally random. You know, there were certain scenes, so we have to establish from the beginning that Medusa is in fact evil, and we do this most effectively back in the day by showing that she's a terrible driver.
Like Cruella de Vil, they did the same thing.
Right, and you know, watching it, I think they might have actually lifted some of the animation from 101 Dalmatians where Cruella de Vil is driving, and kind of drawn over it for Medusa.
I mean, they do that for a lot of stuff. It was, I think, was 101 Dalmatians before or after this?
101 Dalmatians was early 1960s.
Oh, okay.
So I think they might have actually done that, because, you know, you could save several weeks' time just drawing over old animation, and it's like a similar type car. There's this one shot that's really distinct where you get this kind of like close-up of her face through the windshield, and she's leaning over the steering wheel with this crazed look in her eyes.
Definitely.
Pretty sure that's what they did there. But, you know, I do notice those a lot more these days as I'm watching these old films, and it just kind of like... It doesn't disappoint me that they didn't spend the extra time.
No, they definitely do.
That they
and it makes it familiar.
It does.
Like, we're going to be covering The Jungle Book on Remake Rewind, and I already know that there's the scene where Baloo's dancing that they lifted and put it in...
Aristocats?
No, they did that, but they also put it in Robin Hood for Little John. So, they did that a lot. So, you know, I'm fine with it. It's cool. It is what it is.
It's fine.
It's a style.
It's a mood.
So, they end up going to this, like, pawn shop. And they figure out, like, they hear her on the phone talking to this guy. Was his name Stenson?
I don't remember.
So she's talking to her, like, underling, and they find out Snoops.
Stenson. Who's Stenson?
I don't know.
What's that guy's name? Stoma?
Stoma. Hematoma. So they find out that they're at the bayou, and so they, like, go on a plane. They go to the airport, and Bernard thinks they're going to go on a plane, but it turns out they're going to be riding the Albatross airline.
Orville. Good old Orville.
And I could understand why Bernard was apprehensive about flying on it.
This bird makes the best landing. So he calls in, and for some reason, there's no air traffic control.
Right.
What kind of Mickey Mouse airport is this?
Well, they were late for the flight.
Shot.
Mickey Mouse airport. That went right over my head.
Okay, we're disgusting. Yeah, this was one of my favorite scenes in this movie where Orville comes in for his first landing and just kind of lands on his face.
Yeah, and he bounces and then it's like just skids and you see his face like warping to the ground as
and he's
slides.
So deliciously plump at the same time. It's just great.
How did he get the harness on for the mice that he flies with?
He's a smart bird.
How does he tie a scarf?
He ties it with the tips of his wings.
He doesn't have digits.
It's fine.
So, interesting tidbit about their actual flight. You want to hear something interesting?
Yes.
It makes the Little Mermaid penis castle seem tame. So, in 1999, way back yonder, they actually had to recall a particular version of the VHS of this movie because somebody inserted an image of a topless woman during the flight sequence.
Just like one frame?
I don't know if it's one frame or what, but there was a topless woman, and they issued a recall for the VHS.
That is so random.
Yep.
Who does these things? Like, how did they get away with it? How does it make it to printing and distribution before someone figures it out?
Maybe it was somebody at the printing place where they're actually putting it on the magnetic tape.
It would have to be in the master if it was going to be duplicated to all of them.
Maybe the person who did it, maybe somebody who took the master and did that at that place.
It's pretty easy to splice. Even you can do that.
I mean, I worked at a movie theater that used 35mm. I put together and took apart hundreds of movies.
Did you ever splice in boobs?
No, I never did that.
Opportunity wasted.
I wouldn't even know where to get a boob reel.
You have to produce that yourself.
I don't know how to do that.
Well, you've lost too much weight now.
Oh.
You were just saying that you lost your boobs.
Hey, you don't need to put that on put up my business out on the
edit
podcast.
it out.
No, I'm gonna leave it.
I commend your effort, honey.
Hey, I've been working out for just over a month and I've lost like 14 pounds.
Good job.
Yeah, duh.
So at this point, we kind of get out in the bayou. We see.
Born on the bayou.
Is that a song?
Isn't that a Creedence song?
I don't know.
I feel like Creedence said something about a bayou.
Anyway, so Snoops is out there in the bayou, holding Penny in this like what would you call a riverboat?
Yeah, like
Is it
a
a
riverboat,
riverboat?
like a steamboat.
Like a highfalutin steamboat. And it's just they built this whole world so effectively.
Born on the
in this
Bayou
film.
is a Creedence Clearwater song.
We don't need to listen
I'm
to
gonna
it.
put it in later.
Sweet Jesus.
Born on the Bayou. I think it's like something like that.
I forgot what I was saying.
You were saying she was put on like a steamboat, riverboat.
Yeah, I really love, and it's interesting because I was born in Texas, but I'm not from the South. My family doesn't really have anything to do with the South other than my dad being born in Virginia.
Virginia.
It's just not really in my roots that much, but something about seeing depictions of the Deep South and of the bayou and the fireflies and the Spanish moss and like marshy stuff is just weirdly comforting to
Gators.
me. Gators. All the gators. I really like how they built that whole world in this film.
Oh, absolutely. So one of the things I thought was pretty crazy. I don't even understand. Actually, I want to go back to. I'm sorry. I'm gonna go back to the flight scene really fast because I laughed out loud, pretty loud at this part. So they're flying through New York City before they end up in the bayou, right? And he's like going through the city, and he dives low, and he goes through like a little tunnel that's on like a tube that's on a truck. Yep, he goes through this tunnel tube thing on a truck. And he just goes through an intersection, and Bernard's like, he just ran a red light. I laughed so hard at that. It's so dumb.
Bernard is just nitpicking everything that he can possibly see wrong about this entire situation.
Because he wanted to take the train.
He did. Because he's a smart little guy.
He's like Joe Biden.
He's like Joe Biden.
I really liked, like, I almost said white trash family, but, like, the mice that lived in the bayou. I really liked those characters. Like, the guy gave, Bernard some like
the river
moonshine.
rats.
The river rats. Yeah, they were great. They had like the fastest boat on the bayou, and it's just like a leaf with a dragonfly.
Little Evinrude pushing it.
Yeah, and then they could take the dragonfly can go and deliver messages for him too. That was pretty cool.
You know, I think there's actually a boat company called Evinrude.
I have no idea. I have no idea if that's a thing or not. Evinrude is a type of boat. Good job, honey. It kind of like looks like the Homer Simpson car. They see her, and these gators end up finding Penny. So they follow the gators back to the boat.
How did she train those gators so well?
I don't know. They do turn on her. So I don't know. Like these are like also the only animals that don't talk in the movie,
Which is a little strange.
but they're still super smart. Like they communicate with each other with like looks and nods and
These
everything like that.
satisfying grunts.
Yeah, exactly.
I like their noises.
Right. And they understand people, obviously. And there's a point where Penny's like, don't get my teddy bear wet. And they, like, dunk the teddy bear.
So rude.
So, clearly they're intelligent. But at this point, basically, they end up on the boat. And it revealed themselves to Penny. She's like, you didn't bring anybody bigger to help out? And they're like, no, we've got this, fam. And what's really fun, like, she can understand the mice. And the mice can talk to her. And this is, like, a plot point that comes back later. But basically, they escape by setting off fireworks in Medusa's room. Oh, no. What ended up happening? Because they had to leave for some reason. Or did Medusa just come into the room? Because they end up going into the cave to get the diamond with her. And I don't really remember.
Well, they're trying to escape. And so they try and trap the alligators in the boat elevator.
Oh,
with Bianca's perfume. They lure them into there because early on, when they arrive on the boat, they realize that the gators can smell her. And they're trying to find her. And that's when there's that whole scene with the pipe organ.
The pipe organ was great.
That's such a good scene.
That was so fun. What happened?
So the gators are sniffing out Bianca, and Bernard realizes what's happening, so they go and try and hide in the organ. Why there's a pipe organ on a boat, I have no idea, but it's pretty cool.
It was a riverboat. People used to hang out
right?
on it, gamble, drink moonshine.
So they're hiding in the pipes of the organ, which blows air through them, and these gators are trying to press all the keys to see the mice fly out the top of the pipes, and it's just adorable.
It's really
the gators playing this pipe organ.
Yeah, that was great. So they ultimately, like, Penny gets caught, and they jump in her pockets, and they go into this little tiny island, and there's just like a little hole in the top of it where they just dump the girl down, and she keeps there's a ton of jewels down there, and like they don't want the jewels, they only want the Devil's Eye, which is supposed to be the world's largest diamond, and they ultimately find it. They get out, and then like the two evil people kind of argue because they don't want to share it.
Hang on. When the mice are first in this cave with Penny, she's telling them all about the cave and what she's doing down there. She's like, this used to be a pirate's cave. And Bern's like, well, how do you know that? And she's like, him over there.
There's just a skeleton with pirate's clothing.
It's so good.
The clothing wouldn't be there anymore.
I like her relaxed nature about it.
Right. So ultimately, like, they get the diamond. They give it to the Medusa. Medusa hides it in Penny's teddy bear. And the other guy, what did we call his name? Snoops? Snoops is, like, upset because he's not going to share it. So they end up, like, fighting amongst themselves. The mice...
He's not going to share it?
She's not going to share it with him, the money, like the proceeds from the diamond. So they're kind of fighting amongst themselves. And then the mice set off fireworks because for some reason Snoops is, like, obsessed with fireworks.
Right.
So they set off fireworks. No,
they're not fireworks. They're flares.
No, she specifically says they're fireworks because she is mad at him.
She said flares.
Well, she tells him to
light up
flare.
The swamp so she can see where Penny went.
But then he also has fireworks because she also says, your darn fireworks got us into this mess because like it lights the boat on fire. And then they steal her swamp motorcycle vehicle thing and like drive off into the sunset, and then it's like a happy ending. And there's a point where she chases them on the gators. She's like water skiing on the gators.
Right. Well, she's being dragged behind the swamp mobile that Penny is piloting. She's hanging onto a rope of some kind, and she's gliding across the top of the water. And then she comes up on the gators' backs, and somehow the gators get dragged, and she's water skiing.
Maybe they're just matching the velocity.
You know, my grandmother used to water ski.
Yeah, was she good?
Apparently.
Nice. Did she do like the water skiing where there was like a pyramid of women?
I think she did like jumps and stuff.
Nice. To get off some sweet jumps. Got some sweet air.
Yeah.
Tight.
Crazy Puerto Rican.
Rad.
I mean, what else are you going to do in Spokane, Washington?
Nothing.
If
it's 2012, you get abducted by North Korea in the Point Break. I kept calling Red Dawn Point Break. The Red Dawn remake takes place in Spokane, Washington.
Spokane.
Spokane. So, I mean, that's basically the end of the movie.
This film heavily advocates alcohol consumption. I'd completely forgotten about that.
Does it?
It does. What do you think that he's drinking?
Oh no, the river rat is definitely drinking moonshine.
Yeah, the river rat has got moonshine. So Bernard and Bianca early on meet these river rats, and they've obviously had a rough journey. And
because the Albatross crashed.
Yeah, they've had a rough go. So this river rat just pops his bottle of moonshine into Bernard's mouth, and his eyes like flicker.
Flash red.
They flicker different colors, and obviously it's alcohol in there, and obviously it's got some major kick to it. And it kind of peps him up, and then they're ready to go again. And then later on, but it energized him, which is as good as advocating. And then later on, they exhaust poor Evinrude, trying to outrun what's happening.
And they
So
pour the
then
moonshine in it.
They give him a little drop of the moonshine. He peps right up and he's ready to go again.
Oh, the dragonfly, that's right. And then they also use the moonshine to fuel the swamp vehicle.
They do. Some good stuff.
So the end of the movie is just kind of like this little scene where Penny gets adopted and she's on the news because she gave the diamond to the Smithsonian Museum, and everyone's like, hey, you're a good little girl. Good for you.
Well, hang on. I think we need to talk about like exactly how Medusa got defeated. It all boils down to her being attacked by pretty much all the swamp creatures.
Yeah, that's
that
right.
team up against her.
Yeah, the hood rats, the river rats come and like beat her with like rolling pins and
Which
stuff.
would be terrifying.
Yeah, it would be.
Like, you have to admit, I think even if she made it out physically unscathed, she would be seriously questioning her life choices at that point. Like,
Seeing
did
all
that
these
just
mice
happen?
in clothing beating her.
Right. Like, where did that weasel get overalls? Was it a weasel? I don't really know what he was.
I think they were all... No, I think he was a rat or a mouse too, and he's just taller than the rest of them. Because they called him cousins.
Cousins. No, I think cousin is just like, it's like calling someone old sport.
Ah, old chap.
Yeah, I think that's what the phrase was there.
Got it. But yeah, so Penny gets adopted and she's on the news because the reporter's like, hey, you finally got adopted and you're a good kid. Good for you. And he's like, how did you do this all by yourself? She's like, I wasn't by myself. These two mice came and they helped me and they talked to me and they were great. So it's funny. Like, I don't know if this is a thing where only kids can talk to the animals. I really don't know because there are movies like that. Like, I really don't know how this works.
I don't think it really matters.
Nah, I don't think it really matters either. So, did this ruin your childhood?
Nope.
Did it make your childhood better?
I love this movie.
It was really good. I went into it not really remembering anything about it.
I thought it might be a little bit ruined for me, you know, just because
It's old?
it's old, and there are definitely portions where the animation is not great.
No, and that, I mean, but honestly, like, going back and looking at stuff, like, Beauty and the Beast, we covered on Remake Rewind, and there are points where the animation is not good in that, and that was an Academy Award-winning movie.
Well, and here's the thing, though. With Beauty and the Beast, the parts where the animation is not good, it's because the proportions of the characters change.
Right.
And it looks goofy in that way. In this, the proportions never change. The physics are never really bad. The angles are never really bad. It's just that things aren't as fully fleshed out.
Right. Sometimes you can see, you know, when you draw a body, you draw like a series of circles and then you connect them and then you're supposed to erase them and stuff. There are times where they didn't fully erase some of the circles and stuff like that.
Well, not necessarily that, but there are scenes, like crowd scenes, where they don't fully flesh out all the details of the figures in them. But that's pretty much the full extent of it.
I did like how they tried to do things like when they were like at night, or if they were in the cave and there was only a little bit of light, or when they were in the city. They tried to do some interesting things with color to show that they were in different environments.
Yeah, I loved the colors in this, especially when they discover where the devil's eye is in the cave, and she's shining the lantern, and the diamond catches the light,
right,
and it creates these prisms all over the cave. I really like those things in this.
So, I mean, I obviously have to say this didn't ruin my childhood. I definitely owned this movie and watched it a bunch, not nearly as many times as you did, but I found this movie very engaging and very fun. I really liked it. The time flew by. Movie. You want a few more facts about this movie?
Sure.
So, earlier, I said that this was the first Disney animated feature to get a sequel, right? So, originally, it wasn't going to get a sequel. It was going to be developed as a TV show. And then some executive at Disney decided they really liked it and wanted to make a sequel, so Rescuers Down Under came about. Do you know what became what the TV show ended up becoming?
No.
Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers. So Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers was just, they had already done a bunch of work on a TV show, so they decided let's not waste it, and then they made a TV show off of that with some new characters.
Sweet.
So yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Bob Newhart was Bernard. He sounds way different when he's younger.
He had a long career.
He had a very long career. Good for him.
Yeah. Way to go, Bob Newhart.
Way to go. I don't have anything else. I really enjoyed this movie. I was surprised. I thought it was going to be very hard to find. It's on Amazon. You can rent it for like $3 or you can buy it for like $14 if you want a digital version. So go buy this movie, go rent it, whatever. It's really fun. Watch it.
Yeah. What are we covering next time?
So we're going to be covering one of my favorite movies to watch when I was like a tween / early teen, Scooby-Doo, because we've been seeing all those Shaggy memes. And I've been wanting to watch the movie anyway, but now that Shaggy's popular, we're going to capitalize on it. We're going to watch Scooby-Doo.
Sarah Michelle Gellar just had a Super Bowl commercial.
Oh, good for her.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, we just watched, I almost said Never Been Kissed. She's All That, and that had Freddie Prinze Jr. and Matthew Lillard, so we're going to revisit.
And Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Oh yeah, she had a little cameo in that, so we're going to revisit that crew. And we're going to watch Scooby-Doo. I'm excited.
Yeah, it'll be a good time.
It'll be a great time. So, Katrina?
What?
Where can our listeners find you?
I am all over the internet at Katrinosity. Check out my YouTube.
And check out our YouTube as well. Link in the description for the podcast. And check out our other podcast, Remake Rewind. We're coming up on our anniversary. We're going to have 3 special episodes for our anniversary. And we're going to have 3 special guests on those episodes. So that's great. And check us out on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook at MDXpods. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.